Good morning. I want to welcome the members of the various media houses here to the office of the Prime Minister. I also would like from the outset to introduce the representatives who have joined me here today from the Public Safety Communications Network. To my left is Patrick Doe, who is the Supervisor of Operations in the Emergency 911 Center. And to his left and proceeding leftwards is Corporal Trevor Scott, who is a corporal in the police force and a 911 operator since the inception of the Public Safety Communications Network back in 2008. To his left, Mrs. Eve Bowen Bird, followed by Corporal Wayne Hope of the Royal Antigua and Barbuda Police Force, and to his left is Ayodele Richards, who is a 911 operator. So the Ministry of Telecommunications, Science and Technology is this morning convening a media briefing on the operations of the Public Safety Communications Network. A few months ago, we marked 5 years of successful operation of the PSCN by recognizing the untiring work of the E911 operators. Today, the Ministry of Telecommunications is providing you, the media, and by extension the general public, a synopsis of the performance of the Public Safety Communications Network. Prior to 2004, when a person dialed 911 seeking emergency assistance, an officer at the police headquarters on American Road answered these calls. The equipment and the technology that was being utilized was frankly outdated, if not obsolete. The police and other security agencies, having received a 911 call, were then relying on traditional desk phones to action or respond to the 911 caller. In other words, having received a telephone call, the officer would in turn use a landline and place another call to whomever was best suited to respond to the 911 call. This approach was archaic, and the government, under my watch as telecommunications minister, began developing a master plan to modernize the two-way communications of all public safety agencies. In 2005, out of a total of 551 police and 127 fire personnel, there were only 35 government-issued cell phones being used by these personnel. Improving communication amongst police officers of all ranks was a top priority. Beginning in August of 2005, the government began deploying cell phones to the Royal Police Force of Antigua and Barbuda for the use by the police and fire services. In the first month alone, that is in August of 2005, the first 30 cell phones that were deployed generated over 21,000 minutes of cell phone usage. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm speaking to this issue is that I want to place on public record in a very clear and unambiguous way the performance and record of the government in respect of equipping the security agencies with communication tools. In the period August 2005 to July 15th, 2008, pretty much before the Public Safety Communications Network was launched, and while we were thinking out what the various components of the PSCN should be, and the government was trying to identify the appropriate funding, the Ministry of Telecommunications, in partnership with then Singular, which is now Digicel, and also with Lime, provided over 100 phones to the police. In fact, just for the period April 2007 to March 2008, so that is April 2007 to March 2008, the government spent $492,992 on cell phone airtime for the police. This was only with Lime. This is simply a snapshot of the kind of commitment the government was exhibiting and continues to exhibit towards ensuring that the public safety agencies, including the police, had the capability to communicate with each other. As you are aware, under the Human Entrepreneurship and Assistive Resources Technology Project, which was just announced last Friday, all police stations and fire stations will be equipped with new computer hardware, printers, and 4G LTE broadband internet connectivity, and this process has started today. In August of 2008, the government launched the Public Safety Communications Network, one of the largest investments in modernizing the way security and public safety agencies communicate with the public and with each other. In November of 2008, just a few months after the PSCN was launched, a modern E911 service was launched. And in my brief introductory comments, and before I invite Mr. Pat Dorr to speak about the performance of the Public Safety Communications Network, I want to simply highlight what has the Public Safety Communications Network delivered. In a nutshell, it is a far speedier response, a far speedier and professional response to when people are calling 911, whether they be residents or citizens, and Mr. Dorr will speak to that issue in detail, and we will look at the performance of the Public Safety Communications Network, and more specifically the E911 Center. So across the following agencies, this is what has been delivered to the Police and Fire Service, the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force, which also includes the Coast Guard, the ONDCP, the Emergency Medical Services, the Prison, the National Office of Disaster Service, and the Ministry of Telecommunications. We had deployed 267 portable radios. These are handheld radios. You see them from time to time with the police officers on beat and patrol. They are also being utilized by emergency medical services personnel, as well as in some of the police stations. 65 radios were installed in vehicles, including ambulances and patrol vehicles, fire engines, etc. And some 20 base stations were installed. These are at various police stations, the St. John's Fire Station, the Mount St. John's Medical Center, and at the headquarters of the Emergency Medical Services. So over 365 radios were deployed, making it possible for public safety agencies to not only speak to each other in real time, and when I say real time, literally within seconds, but also for the E911 Center to receive E911 calls and speak to the various agencies that would be required to assist those callers. You will see later on when we hand out the charts that show what the month-to-month calls are, that the majority of those calls really were a mixture between calls that required police assistance and roughly, on average, another 50% or so requiring the intervention of the emergency medical services. The notable system features would be obviously that the radio communication system guarantees secure transmission between these agencies. The transmission is encrypted on selected radio units for high security communications, and there is a facility for interconnecting the various public safety agencies when required to respond to national emergencies. As a matter of fact, that particular mechanism is rehearsed twice weekly because one never knows when a disaster will visit us, as it were. In addition, the network management system allows for performance measurement and reporting capability. And I conclude my introductory remarks in this media briefing before I invite Pat Dorr by indicating that the modern E911 Center, which we will allow you to visit in a few minutes, we had actually wanted to convene this media briefing next door in the Parliament building where the E911 Center is located. But I understand there is a training session by the Establishment Division there in the conference room. So the E911 Center obviously is amply dimensioned with access lines, and I'll have Pat Dorr explain that to you when we get across there in a few moments. And this enables diversity routing to ensure uninterrupted access for callers. The operators are all trained with widely varying backgrounds to bring a degree of sensitivity to call handling, and at least 90% of calls to the E911 center are answered within 10 seconds or less. So I want to thank all the 911 operators, Mr. Dorr and his team, for their excellent service to the people of Antigua and Barbuda over the last 5 years. And I also want to place on public record the Ministry of Telecommunications thanks to Ralston James, Arthur Bird, Darrell Jackson, and to their predecessors for ensuring that the back end of the 911 platform stays strong, and of course the team of network engineers that work in the Ministry of Telecommunications to ensure that this particular modern platform stays operational.